Hello guys and welcome back to the Northeast Update YouTube channel. In today's video what we're going to be looking at is the news that broke yesterday that the Saudi transfer ban has not been approved by the necessary amount of Premier League teams. Now, any change in Premier League law needs the majority of Premier League teams to approve this. This fell short by one club. So it came out late last night. It was Martin Ziegler who actually put a tweet out. Hasn't actually broke official by any Sky Sports or any national source like that, but it's believed that he reports that these are the teams that rejected it. So you've got Newcastle United, you've got Manchester City, you've got Chelsea, you've got Sheffield United, Wolves, Nottingham Forest and Everton. They're the reported clubs that have turned down this transfer ban. Now, there's a litter of top-class players that went over to Saudi Arabia. We're going to look at some of them today, see who could be more suited to Newcastle and which ones are the most realistic. So we're going to start off with the most obvious. This is Ruben Neves. Now, he's the one who's been linked most to Newcastle United. Still in the prime of his career, got loads to offer. I was very surprised when he left Wolves, but obviously, like we mentioned in previous videos, it's generational wealth that these players are going over for, so you can't really blame him too much. But where would he fit into Newcastle United? Well, pretty much anywhere. He's obviously got a ton of talent in that central midfield position. Now, Newcastle at the moment are littered with central midfield options. However, with Tonali's ban, it possibly opens the door up. However, unlike some of the other players we're going to touch on in a minute, this is someone who could be a long-term signing for Newcastle if there is a lot of money to spend in January. Now, what would he do in Newcastle? Now, he could do a whole litter of things. He could play defensive midfield. That actually gives Bruno the option to move a little bit forward, which he's been longing for. He's actually come out publicly and said that that's what he wants to do. It also gives Joelinton an option to move up top a little bit more, either on the wings or up top, something like that, provide cover. It gives a lot of options to Newcastle in that central midfield position. So that's the obvious one. That's the one that's been mooted, and that's the one that's doing all the rounds in all of the national papers as well. But I want to touch on some of the other ones. So you've got Laporte, okay, central defender. Now, we've seen this season with Botman being injured, the lack of cover that we have in that central defensive option. Luckily, Jamal Lascelles has played out of his skin. He's been fantastic this season. I know a lot of Newcastle fans, not his biggest fan, with a lot of them, obviously we speak to a lot of fans before and after the Newcastle games. A lot of them were absolutely petrified if he was going to have to come in this season. He's come in, he's played absolutely fantastic. And Newcastle have been very fortunate that that's been the case. But has the Botman injury, which is recurrent, another injury on top of another injury, it was only supposed to be out for a little while. It's still coming up to December. It might be that he's going to be out till January. It really has exposed, for me personally, our weakest position for cover is that central defensive position. So if Lascelles or Shaw was to get an injury, we'd be absolutely snookered. We'd be really having to rely on Dummett or some other players to step in against Champions League and top Premier League opposition. Can they do that? Who knows, but we don't want to take a chance. Now, Laporte is top quality. He's obviously played for Man City. He's played at the top level. He's got a winning mentality, Champions League experience. He would absolutely do a job for Newcastle, no doubt. So for me, this is the person I would most likely want to see fetched into Newcastle, because I personally think this is the position that Newcastle need to be focusing on, not central midfield. Very curious. Football's an opinionated game. I want to know what your opinion is. What should Newcastle do in January, and what should their number one transfer target be, and what should the position be as well? Where are we most weak? Now, that moves on to the centre forward position, and someone who hasn't necessarily been linked, but a lot of Newcastle fans have been longing to see him be fetched back to the club, and that is Mitrovic. Now, when he went up to the Premier League with Fulham, a lot of people wrote him off. A lot of pundits and stuff thought that that was his level, kind of lower Premier League, top Championship sort of level. However, he proved all of them doubters wrong. He had a fantastic season at Fulham, and he was poached away really in one of the peaks of his career. Could he still do a job? Could he be suited for Newcastle? Well, we've seen this season already that injuries have played a massive part. You've seen Isaac ruled out, and then Callum Wilson's picked up a knock. We've even had to talk about having Gordon, who it's not his position to be playing up top. Eddie Howe's also mentioned about Joelinton, how he can play up there. But do we need a recognised striker? Now, we always knew Callum Wilson was not going to be playing every single game this season. He's going to pick up his injury knocks. That just comes with the territory of him, unfortunately. So a lot of fans would say that this is the most important position that we need covered in January. We need extra cover for that, for if we do pick up another injury. Obviously, Newcastle have been rattled this season. We I'll put a graphic up. You can see Newcastle currently on 13 injuries at the moment, the highest in the Premier League. So it just highlights we need a lot of cover and a lot of positions. And the most important position, arguably, on the football pitch is someone who's going to get goals. So could Mitrovic do that for Newcastle? No doubt he can score goals for Newcastle. But is that the type of player who would fit under the Eddie Howe formation, his style of play? High intensity, tracking back a lot. Does Mitrovic have that to his game? Now, I don't know. He hasn't obviously done that. That's not really what he's been told to do under previous managers. He's been told to stay up top, let the ball come into you. Could he do it? Let me know what your thoughts are below. Then you've got Mahrez. Now, this is someone, again, who is in his 30s, but he's obviously got a lot to offer. He would definitely be an upgrade. As much as I like Murphy and Almiron, he would definitely be an upgrade on them. So could he be fetched in from Saudi Arabia? I want to know, again, your thoughts on that. We've probably got the more stocked position in terms of those winger positions because of the performances of Almiron and Jacob Murphy. A lot of fans had wrote them off in previous seasons, but they've been fantastic this season. We've obviously got Anthony Gordon, we've got Harvey Barnes, who's due to come back probably by the time the January transfer window opens up. So is this one necessary? Probably to improve the team. You definitely get into the first team, you would imagine. But what's your thoughts? Next, we've got the flagship of Saudi Arabia, Ronaldo. Now, could he cut it at Newcastle? Now, personally for me, I would say no. I followed him when he was at Manchester United before he left for Saudi. I was very disappointed with his performances. He's quite petulant coming off the pitch, wiping away fans' phones, and you could just see when he was losing, he's very, very frustrated, but not in a good way. A lot of anger and a lot of baggage that I feel would come with that. So for me personally, it's a no. I know he would sell a lot of kits at Newcastle. He would raise the profile. It would get the club exponential money because of what it would do. But for me, what Eddie Howe has got is he's got a team that want to play. He's got a team that are playing really well, high energetic, high intensity. He's got a real great atmosphere about it. And for me, I think that would possibly disrupt it and it would do more harm than it would do good. Obviously, a lot of people are going to disagree with that because the star power that he's going to fetch in, the likes that Newcastle have never seen for probably since the likes of Alan Shearer, and possibly Ronaldo's even on top of that. We know he's known all over the world, probably one of the greatest players to ever play the game. So the reputation and the star power, everything else that he'd fetch in Newcastle, you could understand the argument for fetching him in. Then we move on to central midfield. Now, Sandro Tonali's massive ban was something that Newcastle didn't obviously prepare for or predict. No one's seen it coming. So we're going to look at some central midfielders that are playing in Saudi at the moment that could come in and do a job. Maybe not necessarily a full-on transfer, but a loan player that would just bridge the gap for the Sandro Tonali ban. So first of all, Kante. Now, I've been a huge fan of Kante his entire career. He is 32 now, so there's going to be some question marks over can he still do it at this level. Maybe we don't necessarily need someone who's going to jump straight into the first team. Maybe it's just cover for them injuries and stuff like that. If that's the case, Kante 100% could do that job. Haven't seen him in Saudi Arabia. Haven't seen much of the football, to be honest, in Saudi Arabia. So I'm not sure what his level is like currently. But 32 Champions League experience. You would imagine he would settle in midfield, and also a lot of the players would be able to learn from his experience that he's got. So for me, if it's a loan, definitely fetch him in. No harm with that. Then we move on to someone who I've put down here for a little bit of a giggle. I really can't see this happening, but Gareth Southgate loves him. Jordan Henderson. There's obviously going to be a huge uproar if that happens. It'll never ever happen because of the Mackham versus Geordie debate. But on the pitch, could he do a job? Quite possibly, yeah. He's got that leadership quality and stuff like that, but it's not really worth touching on much more than that. It literally will not happen. I can't imagine that happening. You just imagine the headlines if that did and what that would do for the Northeast community. It would be headline news and it would be all over the place. So the realistic option in central midfield I've got here is Fabinho as well. So he left Liverpool. He's still only 30 years old, got a loads left to offer. You're kind of just hoping when you come for these players as well, it's only been probably 6 months that they've been to Saudi Arabia, a lot of them. Are they going to be settled in there, or are some of them going to be having itchy feet? Are they going to be disappointed with the standard of the league? Are they going to be wanting to play competitive football? Obviously, he was playing at Liverpool. He was playing Champions League. He's thrown all that away for the money and to build, obviously, the Saudi Arabian football. But will he be tempted to come back? You would imagine a lot of these players, they'll have been watching Newcastle. They'll be saying the way that we play. So not only is it Champions League football, but you'd imagine if you're a player, you want to be involved in the way that we're playing. It's the fan base that we've got. Could he come over? Would he be tempted? He obviously left Liverpool, so he's left the Champions League club at the time to go over to Saudi. So would he come to Newcastle? Question marks. Nothing wrong with putting probably a cheeky bid in. It could be someone that we could even look to sign for a couple of years, 3 years, something like that. Let him finish his career at Newcastle. But if we're looking at central midfield, I think the one that's been most mooted, the Neves one, is probably the most obvious. And that's probably why it's picking up a lot of the traction. So, like I said before, let us know below what your thoughts are on who Newcastle need. If there's anyone else that I've missed off, I know there's a load of players who are playing over in Saudi Arabia. You've got Mane and a lot of others which I haven't touched on. Let us know your thoughts on them as well. You'll have noticed there hasn't been many videos recently on the YouTube channel. We are going to do some quick fire videos over the next couple of days. There's going to be some big videos coming before Tuesday. There'll be Sunday where we'll be speaking to the Chelsea and Newcastle fans to get their pre and post match reaction, and then there's also an event that we'll be going to. So don't forget to like, follow and subscribe the channel for not only to support us, we're only a small local channel, but also to be notified whenever there's any big videos as well. For the Newcastle fans that are watching this as well, we've got a massive Newcastle United community. We've got a lot of Facebook pages, Twitter pages, all that. We encourage anyone who's watching this, wants to be kept up to date with the latest stuff that's been going on in Newcastle. Stuff where maybe we can't necessarily do a massive video on, but something just to keep you up to date with everything that's going on. We do update that all of the time. So we'll put the link below to that, as well as all of our other links. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.